Hello, my name is Celeste Ward, and I never thought I'd learn the hardest lesson about family from an Instagram post. One Tuesday morning, instead of a wedding invitation, I scrolled through photos of my sister walking down the aisle without me. The shock cut deeper than any uniform inspection or deployment I'd ever endured. She hadn't just forgotten me, she had erased me. And in that moment, I realized sometimes the people you expect to stand beside you are the very ones who shut the door. This is the story of how I chose dignity over begging. On a Tuesday morning in June 2023, I didn't get an invitation, I got an Instagram post. The hum of fluorescent lights vibrated through the Air Force office, a sound that had long ago blended into the background of my daily grind. Computers blinked in predictable rhythm, and the low buzz of conversation carried from the hallway outside. Everything around me spoke of duty order and systems that functioned as they should, until my phone lit up. At first, I thought it might be Grant checking in between meetings, maybe another reminder to eat lunch. But no one red notification blinked with a tag. I don't post in uniform. I don't chase likes. Still habit tugged my thumb across the screen. The image that filled it cut harder than any reprimand I'd ever received. Sienna, my younger sister, swathed in white satin and lace. Veil pinned with meticulous care. A ridiculous floral arch bending over her like the world itself wanted to frame her perfection. Beside her, my mother's navy dress shimmered against soft focus lighting, my father beaming like he'd just won something permanent. Captioned with a gush of emojis. So proud of our sweet girl, I blinked twice, convinced I had misread the context. Maybe a bridal shower? Maybe a rehearsal. Anything but the actual moment. But then my eyes caught the minister in the background collar, stark Bible raised. This was it. Her wedding. And I hadn't even known it was happening. A laugh escaped bitter and small because of course. Of course I wasn't there. The same way I wasn't there on my own 30th birthday. I'd reserved a table for 3 at a little Italian restaurant, hopeful. My parents never showed. Instead, Sienna posted vineyard selfies captioned, "Weekend, with the fam." That night, I sipped wine alone, pretending the waiter's pity smile didn't gut me. That was the pattern. Whenever she shone, I disappeared. I tried to shake the memory, but my hands betrayed me, dialing my father's number before I thought better of it. He answered on the second ring. The TV mumbled weather reports in the background. "Hey kiddo, how's work? Always work? Never me." "It's Tuesday," I said, voice steadier than I felt. "I saw the photos." Silence. A cough, a throat clearing. "You know how your mother is. She handles those things." I swallowed the lump in my throat. Handles telling her eldest daughter she no longer exists. He tried again, softer. "Don't make this about you, Celeste. It's her day." That line. The anthem of my life. Not about me. Never about me. I ended the call before my jaw cracked from holding it shut. My thumb hovered over Sienna's profile, needing answers she'd never give. I tapped, and the page blinked blank. No photos, no posts, no sister. She had blocked me, deleted me the way one discards an unflattering picture. My reflection caught in the darkened window, sharp uniform, crisp collar, eyes dulled with a weight I hadn't earned. For years I had shown up, carried burdens, wired money, filled silence with reliability. And for what to be erased when her story needed polishing? I pushed away from the desk and walked to the tiny mirror above the filing cabinet. My own face stared back, unsmiling, unflinching. For the first time, the truth landed with clarity rather than ache. This wasn't oversight. This was deliberate. And if they could erase me, I could erase myself from their script. People think silence is surrender. I decided mine would be strategy. My apartment greeted me with shadows, the uniform still hanging on the door like an order I no longer wanted to obey. I dropped my keys and let the quiet settle. The instinct was to call, to plead, but I'd learned how that played out. On my 30th birthday, I'd eaten alone while scrolling through Sienna's vineyard selfies labeled Family Weekend. Whenever she glittered, I vanished. A different habit stirred records. I remembered every wire transfer, every tuition bill I covered for her. All tucked away neat receipts like a ledger no one cared to acknowledge. Tonight they flickered in my head like a pilot light reminding me I wasn't as invisible as they wanted. My phone buzzed. Grant home, I typed yes. A moment later, he walked in with takeout and that look he wears when he's weighing options. We ate in silence until he set down his chopsticks. "Where's your head?" "Between showing up uninvited and disappearing completely," I admitted. He leaned forward. "There's a third option. Air. Water. Sunlight. Let your absence speak louder." He slid his phone toward me. 2 tickets pulsed on the screen. "Hawaii. They erased you. Now let them choke on your presence." I almost laughed. Instead, I unzipped the garment bag he'd hung by the chair. Silk brushed my knuckles crimson and unapologetic. "You bought a dress." "I bought a decision," he said. "Pack it or don't. Either way you choose." I chose. The flight out of Texas cut a clean path into blue. Hours later, the Pacific stretched beneath me like a verdict. At the resort, I stepped barefoot onto the deck, salt air clinging to my skin. For once, the horizon didn't shrink me, it widened. Grant lifted his phone. "Turn this way. Chin up." I rolled my eyes but obeyed. The wind caught my hair. The skirt lifted as if on cue. One click. One frame. He handed me the phone, and the woman staring back wasn't defined by absence. She looked unbothered, alive. I opened Instagram. My fingers typed before doubt could. "Not every invitation deserves a reply." Then I posted. By sunset, my phone trembled nonstop. Comments, reposts, cousins I hadn't heard from in years. Jenna's text came sharp and gleeful. "Your post is everywhere." Screenshots spread side by side with Sienna's bridal photos, strangers speculating on what it all meant. It wasn't about the dress, it was about refusing to beg for a seat. I poured a drink, the ice cracking like a bridge snapping behind me. Grant leaned against the doorframe, grinning. "Any regrets?" "Only that I didn't do it sooner." We ate grilled fish and pineapple on the balcony, the ocean breathing below us. For the first time in months, my shoulders dropped without command. Somewhere in Dallas, narratives shifted, group chats bent, and people whispered about the sister who had vanished from their script but reappeared on her own terms. Then another vibration cut through the night. Not Jenna, not Grant. An unknown number. The preview froze my breath. "Camille Ashford has seen your post. Weddings aren't supposed to shrink, but Sienna's did, like silk pulled too tight until it frayed." I read the first message on the balcony in Hawaii, a cup of coffee cooling beside me. The Pacific stretched endless and steady while my phone buzzed like it had unfinished business. Screenshots cascaded from Jenna vendors, whispering planners, backing out florists, demanding deposits that had somehow evaporated. One note said bluntly, "Bride's resume doesn't check out, she faked her references." Another, "Family's credit unreliable." The words stacked like bricks, building a wall I didn't need to climb. Grant leaned on the railing, gaze fixed on the horizon. "Same storm, different city," he said. "At least you're dry here." I scrolled further. More screenshots. My mother frantically texting contacts for discounts, my father trying to reassure investors tied to the Ashford Foundation. The more they scrambled, the more it looked like rot surfacing after years underground. I didn't gloat. I simply recognized the pattern. That night, I pulled out my old laptop. The folder waited where I'd left it. Wire transfers, PDFs of tuition bills, stamped paid essays, ghost-written under my name, rent checks signed in haste. Every sacrifice I'd made to hold Sienna's life together. For years, I had been the scaffolding she never thanked. Now I saw it for what it was, proof. The call came close to midnight. Her name lit the screen, and I hesitated before answering. "You ruined me," Sienna's voice shattered across the line. Everything is falling apart. Vendors are canceling. Trent won't return my calls. People are talking. You think this is funny? I let her words burn themselves out, then answered evenly. No, Sienna. I didn't ruin you. I just stopped carrying you. Her sobs twisted into rage before she hung up. The silence afterward was heavier than her noise. Grant crossed the room, touched the back of my chair. So I'm done, I said. But my eyes lingered on the folder. Done didn't mean careless. Done meant deliberate. I drafted a single email to an address Jenna had slipped me, Camille Ashford's assistant. Subject line: for compliance, not spectacle. I attached the folder, every file labeled and orderly, and typed one line beneath it. I didn't expose her. I filed the record. Then I hit send. Back in Dallas, the collapse accelerated. Jenna's updates read like dispatches from a battlefield: caterers backing out invitations, rescinded bridesmaids muttering about contracts breached. My parents defaulted to form, pointing fingers at me in hushed side conversations, as if distance made their blame reach further. I ignored them. When the wedding day finally arrived, reports trickled through group chats and gossip threads. The grand ballroom was gone, canceled, funds seized. What remained was a modest church, gathering barely filled. Guests whispered into their programs, eyeing rows of empty seats that outnumbered the occupied. The groom stood rigid at the altar, stone-faced lips pressed into a flat line that looked more like endurance than devotion. I set my phone aside, the Kauai breeze shifting through the curtains. The distance between their chaos and my calm felt like a moat I had built myself. Later, a new email slid into my inbox. From Camille herself. Subject acknowledged. Inside 2 sentences, I understand. Meet me in October. Attached was a PDF: Sienna's resume marked with red lines through every fabrication. I exhaled, steady and sure. Their script had always written me out. This time, I'd chosen my own role. If you've ever waited for the moment when truth finally turns the tables, don't look away. Now the real reckoning is only beginning, and you'll want to be here when it breaks. Justice doesn't always wear a robe. Sometimes it wears evening gowns and name tags. Dallas in October glowed with a curated kind of generosity. Chandeliers hovered like captured suns above the Women Forward gala, their light spilling across gold tablecloths and silent auctions. Backstage, the hum dimmed. I stood in a navy dress with my hair tied back, one hand steady on a folder embossed with my name. Grant's quiet squeeze on my fingers reminded me of takeoffs measured, deliberate, irreversible. Camille Ashford entered without fanfare, the air reshaping around her, as though it recognized command. Pearl studs, a precise watch presence sharp as velvet steel. She glanced at the folder, then at me. This isn't pity. This is accuracy. That's all I ever wanted, I said. We waited as the program flowed: panels, applause, polished laughter. Through the curtain, I caught a glimpse: my mother, upright, arms tense against her gown. My father staring too long at a wineglass. Sienna still as porcelain, gaze pinned to the stage like it owed her salvation. The MC announced Camille. Silence folded the room. She stepped out, voice measured. Tonight we honor women whose work was quieter than the rooms they were in, and who did it anyway. She told brief stories: a soldier who paid bills that weren't hers, a leader who kept meticulous records, a sister whose name was missing from an invitation yet chose to stand in the sun. With each recognition rippled. Then, please welcome Celeste Ward. The carpet carried me forward 20 weighted steps. Applause began polite, then grew as if people realized they'd been clapping for a ghost who finally solidified. Camille met me with a velvet box. She pinned the enamel to my lapel, warmth seeping through fabric into skin. For once, proof did not hide in a folder. It gleamed in plain sight. The applause thickened, camera shutters stitching permanence. My mother's shoulders drew tighter. My father studied the centerpiece as though it held instructions. Sienna's lashes lowered until she was nearly faceless. Memory intruded my ROTC ceremony, my mother slipping out early for Sienna's appointment. Then I'd been the overlooked silhouette. Now I stood visible. Camille seated the microphone. The room leaned in. I measured breath, then gave the only words I owed. Power reclaimed isn't loud, it's undeniable. The syllables landed clean. Applause rose like surf against seawalls, breaking and returning stronger each time. Hands reached as I stepped away. Congratulations, brief touches, nods that felt like repairs. Flashbulbs burned white marks across my vision, each one another confirmation that I existed outside their script. Backstage again, Camille's approval was cool, exacting. "You carried a great deal," she said. "Most of it invisible. You set it down without throwing it." "I learned to file, not fling," I said, touching the pin. "This isn't charity. It's correction," she replied, adjusting it with deft fingers. "Consider this the beginning, not the end." Grant appeared, pride softening the line of his jaw. He took my hand, kissed my knuckles, simple grounding. For once I laughed not from bitterness, but relief. Accuracy had been restored, if only in this room. We lingered near the curtain, listening as the program moved on. A woman stopped me briefly, saying her sister had once excluded her too, that my sentence on stage had been the language she lacked. I thanked her because solidarity has a weight lighter than blame. Not every message deserves an answer, especially when silence is the only truth left. The buzz came before dawn, dragging me out of a dreamless sleep. My phone glowed on the nightstand screen, angled toward the ceiling as if trying to be noticed. I hesitated before turning it over. One gray image stared back at me, an ultrasound. Beneath it, Sienna's words pulsed in sharp clarity. "Do you want to meet your niece?" I sat at the kitchen table with coffee steaming in the cool January air. Light filtered through the blinds, striping the wall like bars, though I no longer felt imprisoned. I held the phone in my palm and studied the message until the letters blurred. At first, I wanted to see innocence, but under it I recognized the same bait she had always dangled: pity, disguised as reconciliation. A rope knotted not to save me, but to pull me back under. Memory echoed the block on Instagram my erasure delivered with a swipe. This was the inverse maneuver she wanted me written back in now that her stage had collapsed. Grant patted in hair-mussed eyes, gentle but alert. He rested a hand on my shoulder. "Still thinking about it?" "She used a child this time," I said. The words felt foreign in my mouth. He squeezed lightly. "You don't owe them your healing." That landed with the weight of truth. Silence isn't cruel, it's clarity. I turned the phone face down, the glow extinguished. By mid-morning, I walked into the Women Forward program headquarters, a building made of glass and clean angles. The air smelled faintly of new paint and ambition. I signed in, clipped a badge to my dress, and was led to a modest conference room. Camille waited inside, posture, straight folder in hand. "The floor is yours," she said, offering it to me. I opened the folder, though I barely needed the notes. Then I stepped up to the podium. Rows of women filled the room, faces lined by fatigue, some lit with nervous determination. I saw in them the shadow of who I had been: a daughter, overlooked; a soldier, discounted; a woman, erased. I let the silence hold for a breath, then began. Silence is not absence, it's choice. And today, it's power. Heads lifted, pens stilled. I spoke not of my family's betrayals, but of the discipline of drawing boundaries, of reclaiming space without begging for applause. The words felt less like a speech than an exhale, a declaration I had waited years to make. Applause rose, not deafening, but steady, human, and real. It washed over me without drowning me. Camille's nod from the corner was small, but it carried the gravity of recognition. That evening, I returned home to find the phone exactly where I'd left it, screen black, patient. I flipped it once, saw the ultrasound again, that insistent plea. This time, I didn't hesitate. I placed the device face down. I don't need their applause. I have my own pulse steady and clear. I've carried silence like a shield for years, and tonight, I finally learned silence can also be a verdict. If you've ever felt erased, overlooked, or treated as though your voice didn't matter, then you already know the weight I've lived with. I ask you, stand with me now. Leave your thoughts below. Tell me what you would have done in my place. And remind me I'm not alone. And for your own life, never let manipulation disguise itself as love. Boundaries are not cruelty, they're survival. Choose clarity, choose dignity, and let your silence speak for you.